So good evening, everyone. I'm Tiffany Feingold. I am the co-founder of Guiding Bright Minds. Let me tell you a little bit about Guiding Bright Minds if you're not familiar with us. Hopefully you are, but my husband and I started this about 15 months ago. We are parents of a neurodivergent child, and through that journey, through that experience, we wanted to create a company that can help parents on their journey. We know firsthand how overwhelming, how exhausting, how frustrating that journey can be, trying to figure out who, what, where, why. There's so many different resources out there. There's so many different professionals out there. How do you narrow down that scope? So as I was going through my own journey and those experiences, for me is to create a community where we're all coming together, where you have professionals and parents and educators and nonprofits, where we work collaboratively to say, how do we help our children? How do we help our adults who are neurodivergent? How do we really build that community to understand, to when they hear, of ADHD or they hear dyslexia, that, their mind first goes to the strengths, to the superpowers, because our kiddos have such amazing superpowers that they bring to our community, that they bring to the world, and to share that and to change those and really focus together. If you haven't joined, I'll put a link hopefully in the chat once I get it up and working, to join the Guiding Bright Minds community. It's free for parents. I put on their events. We have blogs, what's an IEP, what's a 504, what's the difference between a medical evaluation and a medical diagnosis and an educational diagnosis, just all the tools and resources that I know are important to have on your fingertips when going through this. And then, as you know, we have 2 free webinars a month that you're able to come to be a part of it. I've created birthday buddies here locally in Colorado. I'm hoping to spread this out nationally, but no child should ever go without having a birthday party celebrated and having people show up. So we've joined forces with the Century Club here in Colorado to provide a free birthday party for our kids. So we've hoped to expand that. I do a monthly Zoom call for parents just so we can get together and collaborate, because that's probably been one of the life-changing things for me, is meeting other parents of neurodiverse children, so we can work together and we understand what we're going through, and that's been helpful for me. And the other thing I just want to add is I want to hear from you. On our website, there is a place where you can ask questions, where you can make comments. So if there's other resources, other tools, other topics you want to hear about it, this is our journey. I'm on it with you together. So please share with me how I can help, what I can do, what you're looking for. I do want to do this together. So that is a little bit about me on Guiding Bright Minds. So thank you all again for your time, because I know time is precious, and being here today. And I'm so excited for this topic and this discussion, because I know it impacts so many people in so many different ways, and so excited for Corrine to be here. So Corrine Turner-Jacobs has been in the education field since 1999. She has a master's degree in reading specialist, holds multiple teaching licenses, and is the associate level with Orton Gillingham. She believes that all students have a right to an excellent education. I so much agree with that, through the best practices. As a highly qualified teacher, she offers her clients a wealth of knowledge of alternative teaching strategies, patience, and understanding of how to differentiate learning in your unique child. Additionally, Corrine believes that the child's growth is not possible without the incredible support of parents. You are your child's first teacher and advocate. Corrine has worked and has co-taught with a wide range of K through 12 students, both with and without special learning needs. Corrine lives in Brighton with her husband and 3 boys, dogs, and rabbits. She homeschools her youngest son, and her other 2 have a couple more years before they graduate high school. In her free time, she reads and exercises. So thank you so much, Corrine, for being here tonight with us and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you,
Oh,
Tiffany.
and wait, before you get started, sorry.
Okay.
Those of you who have just joined, the chat is disabled right now. I'm going to work on getting that up. However, at the end, we will allow time for Q&A. So at the bottom of your screen, well, I think it's at the bottom and most of them, is a Q&A section. So as Corinne's going through her presentations, please throw in any questions that you have, and we'll get to that at the end. So thank you again, Corinne.
So I'm going to go ahead and actually do two different separate sections for the Q&A. So we're going to cover the reading decoding part, and then I'll stop and ask any questions if you guys have anything about specifically reading, and then we'll do the same thing at the end there too. So thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. Tiffany, how's that look?
That looks great.
Awesome. All right, so today what we're going to talk about is helping my child with literacy at home. Specifically, how are you going to help your child with spelling or decoding without giving them the answers? We know that the kid is sitting there struggling and you just want to be able to provide the word for them, but we know that best practice is they've got to be able to figure it out on their own. So how do we be able to make that connection? How can we give them that extra support? So let's go ahead and tackle this. The first one that we want to talk about is what is decoding. So decoding is the actual act of looking at a word, knowing all of the sounds, the relationship between the letters, putting it all together, and then reading the word. For instance, if we look at this word cat, we're going to see three different phonograms. We have a k, a, t, and then put the word together and we have cat. That one's pretty straightforward. But when we look at this one, it becomes a little bit more complex. The word is watch. There's three sounds here. We have w, ch. However, there are 5 letters. So the kids really have to be able to understand that the TCH makes the one sound ch, and that the A makes the ah sound when it's next to a W. So there's lots of different teaching that has to go on when they start thinking about all the relationships between the words. So what are we going to do when my kid runs across a word that they don't know? Inside your handout, as you guys are going to get it, I have given you this resource from IMSC. So you see it right here, this guy right here. And I actually have mine right here as well. I actually laminate this. I put it as a bookmark. So anytime my students are struggling for that, I go ahead and pull it out and we use this as a tool. So let's go over these different strategies through IMSC to really kind of give you some different ideas about how to decode a word. Oh, sorry, switched it there. All right, so the first one here is called Lefty Larry. He's up at the top. And what this means is look at the beginning of a word. Now, kids with dyslexia sometimes will look at a word and instead of starting right here at the S, they will start right here at the R. Or they'll drop the R, and so the word will be tyke or rike. Or they won't even look at the S and they'll just drop it, or they'll drop these two and they'll say psych. So one thing that I have my kids do is they take their finger and I say, okay, touch the first letter. What letter do you see? And that's going to be really important because kids with dyslexia really struggle with some of that auditory sounds. So we want them to really attend to what is it that they see. They're going to say, oh, I see the letter S. And I said, awesome, go ahead and blend it through and read the word strike. So that's one tool that you can use to have them be able to blend through. The next one you can see down here, it's called Grapheme Grasshopper. That's a mouthful right there. What we're looking for is those relationships between words. So as you're reading and your kiddo comes across the word and they're like, I'm not quite sure what that ER sound makes. You're going to say ER says You're not going to do any explicit teaching, but you know that they're struggling with that vowel sound. So you're going to say ER says Go ahead and tap out that sound. D. And remember to put it together and read the word heard. Same thing can happen down here. UR says and you're just going to tell them those two letters together make the sound. So you're going to say blur. Remember, it's really critical that they put all of the sounds together to really build up some of that fluency. So Grapheme Grasshopper just has them segmenting and then blending all the way through. Which leads us to the next good one, Blendy Wendy. You can't have Wendy without the grasshopper. We have to put them all together. Let me show you two different strategies that I really like when I'm blending. The first one right here, you can have the kids go, actually, I'm going to show you three different strategies. So let me grab out I think I want to do this one. You can have the kid go, bled. So they're going to take their finger and they're going to blend it all the way through and not stop. Bled. And that's just fine. Another strategy is if the kiddo is really struggling, we're going to drop in the vowel or drop in the last consonant. I'm going to make them hold that vowel sound until they can get it correct. So it's going to be blah, and I'm going to keep making them hold their mouth open, go blah, and then I'm going to move it, say blah, and d, bled. So they drop in that last sound. The last tool that you can do is called backwards reading. And I tell the kids, you're going to read a word backwards. And they're like, really? And they, turn around or do something funny. I'm like, no. I'm going to show you. So we cover up the whole word and they have to say the d. And then I move it. And then I have to say ed, led, bled. This is super helpful when students are really kind of stuck, when they keep saying bed, or led. They're not able to see whether it's the L or they're getting stuck making that E, making the A sound. So what we do is we cover everything up and then we slowly release all the letters. And it's really amazing just how successful they are with this. And then they've been able to figure out the word by themselves. So blendy wendy, blend it through, chunk it after the vowel, or read it backwards. Next one, you have syllable sound. It would be a whole new webinar if I told you the different types of syllable types. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and put the different syllable types in here. There are 6. The first one is a closed syllable. So we have words like cat, and so the vowel is short. We have words like go, and the word is, or the vowel is long. We have words like cake, and we know that vowel, or we know that syllable type as a magic E. We have vowel teams, or the 2 vowels are together and they make one sound, like boat. You have your R-controlled syllables. So A, R, E, R, I, R, O, R, and U, R. That R takes over in words like star. And your last syllable type is consonant LE, or what we also call a final stable syllable, meaning it can't have a word if you take it apart. So in words like turtle and bottle. So if your kiddo is struggling with a word, then what I want them to do is I want them to say, hey, you can ask them, what kind of syllable type is this? And if they know those syllable types, then that's going to be a good strategy for them to use. If they don't, then don't use syllable sound. The next one is called chase the bass. So when your student starts getting into 2, 3, and 4 syllable words, sometimes they might really struggle with being able to see the morphemes. Our English language is divided into parts that have meaning as well as parts that have sounds. So when we get into words like susceptible, they can sit there and they can chunk out each of the syllables, susceptible. But that's not the purpose of these really long words. What I want them to be able to see is that we have the word sus, which means under, below. We have sept, which means to take, and able, able to. So you can be able to take below. And that's what I want them to start segmenting and seeing as they're reading. And the way that I did that is, or the way that I do that is just like this. So you can kind of start lobbing off each of your different syllable types. So caption gets divided into two parts because there's two different chunks of your morpheme. Interceded. Inter has two syllables, but the prefix is the word inter. And as we start getting into the higher level morphemes, I want them to really notice that these are the patterns that they're going to be able to just read. Because once they see this, they're like, oh yeah, that's the word seed. Same thing here with reproduce, ible. So those are your different syllables here. So if you can chase the base, then go ahead and have them be able to break the words apart that way. Last one here is called Lucy Lightbulb. So she is where you ask the questions, did that make sense? One of the different ways that kids might mess up is in how they break apart that word. So instead of saying the word difference, they said difference. And so they read a sentence and they'll be like, I'm not sure if that really made sense. I don't know what a difference is. Can you go ahead and try that word again? And then they have to go back and they have to think about how they would break it apart in a different way. That's for a high level student. For a lower level student, you might have something where here's your sentence. The frog sits in the lake, but you have a kiddo who drops that blend. So they'll be like, the fog sits in the lake. I don't know what the fog can do. Let's go ahead and back. And that doesn't quite make sense. I need to have a better picture in my mind. Can we go back and let's go ahead and read that? Or maybe you have a kiddo who just doesn't read all the way through the word and they just guess and they just say, oh, it's a lap, because they see that cue of the L and the A. No, I'm not going to have the frog sit on my lap. I don't know about you, but I don't like amphibians. So I want you to go back and go ahead and take a look at that word again and blend it all the way through. So keep using all of those tools. So have them really think about, does that make sense? What's the picture in your mind? And if it didn't work, then go ahead and reread it. So when are you supposed to do this? Your child is sitting there reading. Well, it depends. So you know your child, you know your student. Let me go ahead and go through a couple different options. So first, if you have a child who can't move to the next word, they're sitting there, they have a text in their hand, and they're just stuck. I want you to stop and help them decode that word. When I decode word with my students, I do it with one of two things. This is one of my favorite tools. My mother-in-law actually gave it to me, and I didn't think I would use it. I now use this 5 hours a day. This is that little tablet that you can write on and then just erase. So anytime my students are reading, if they can't decode a word, I have one of these. They're on Amazon, they're $15 each, and they're super worth it. If you don't have one of these, you can get a plain sheet of paper and a sheet cover, and you can write on the sheet cover using expo markers. So if your child can't move to the next word, they're stuck, they're one of those perfectionists, no, I have to read it in order, help them decode the word right then and there. If your child is a broken record trying to figure out the word, so the word is, take a simple word, let's take the word dog, but they keep switching that B and D and they're saying, oh, the bog, the bog, the bog. They're kind of repeating themselves and they know it's not right. Have them stop, slow their brain down, take out your decoding tool and have them decode right then and there. We want to error repair right then. If you're reading a passage and your child is rereading the word incorrectly, for example, maybe you're reading a story about Washington, but they keep reading the word Washington as washing. We don't want them to get a picture of washing machines or washing clothes in their head when they're really supposed to be picturing the founding father here. So I want you to stop and have them decode that word so then they can correctly read the word. Same idea here is that if your child impacts a word that's going to be really important. So if you're reading about Washington and the whole paragraph is about Washington, I want them to be able to create that picture in their head, create that gestalt. So we got to stop them right then and there. So again, error repair right there in the moment. However, if your child is reading fluently and they're doing okay, and you hear their intonation go up on a question, they're stopping at punctuation, but they miscued a word, or they found a word and they kept going, but it didn't quite make sense. Don't stop them. We want them to continue to read for fluency. We want to continue to build that confidence. We want them to be able to see if they can self-correct and attend to their own thinking and work on that executive function. Be like, oh, wait a minute, that didn't make sense. I want to go back and reread that word. Wait till they get to the end of the paragraph, to the end of the page, and then say, hey, you know what? Can you go ahead and try that word one more time? And then they can either reread the whole passage again, or they just reread that sentence. Here's the caveat. Here's the it depends. If you have a child who is a perfectionist, you have a child who doesn't like to be corrected, you have a child who likes to speed read and get everything done, use your best judgment. If you have to wait till they go back through the entire paragraph, then that's what they have to do. And then they'll start realizing, I can't get away with not reading words accurately. So keep practicing that behavior. If I read incorrectly, I'm going to go back. We want to really keep our children emotionally sound. We want them to feel good about reading. So we're only going to really error repair for the words that are really going to make sense, or for the words that they're working on writing, or for the words that really impact their vocabulary. Don't worry about the A's and the thes. Don't worry about the you and the your. Really think about the words that are impacting the comprehension. Next one here is, how often should I be correcting my child's error repaired? Am I gonna really need this every single time we sit down for a book? And the answer should be no. What you are looking for is 95% accuracy with reading. So what we call is a 5-finger rule. So if the book, so you get at a book and you kind of look at the first page and you have your child do a cold read and you say, okay, go ahead and read to me this first page. And I'm talking more like 2nd grade on up, because when we're talking smaller decodable books, they're only going to have, 7 words on a page. So we're thinking about 2nd grade and up, have them read the passage, have them read the page. And if they miscue 5 words or more, and that is going to include the A's and the thes, or flipping the B's and D's, so the big for the dig, or if they insert any little words, that is going to include a miscue. That book is too difficult. I won't have my students read a book that's going to be too difficult where they miss 5 cues or not. If they miss 3 or 4 cues, then that's going to be at their instructional level, meaning they should sit down with you and read that book, or they should sit down with the teacher and read that book. That's a Goldilocks book where you were doing that shared reading. If they miss 1 or 2 words, or less than that, 0 words, then that's an independent reading text. You know that they can be able to read all the words. You know that they can comprehend everything that's on the page if they don't have any other comorbidities. And that you know that they can be able to access all that information in the text if they miss 1 or 2 words, and that's just fine. So the idea here on using this correction tool should not be happening a lot. If it is happening, then just take a look at your book and go, maybe this isn't the right book for you right now. We can put it aside for later and let's go pick out something different. And I think, yep. So that's it on that part right now for the decoding part. Any questions that you guys have for the decoding aspect?
The chat is working, but if we could get all of the Q&A in that Q&A section, that was really good discussion.
I know I go through it fast.
Yes, and I did put in the chat because somebody brought it up with a great question, is, am I sending this out? So I did let everyone know a recording will go out, so you can play this back through along with the presentation. And Corinne's going to go through some amazing additional tools and resources, so those will be brought to you. But yeah, that was some good stuff. Any questions so far? I don't see any coming in.
All right, so the next half is going to be for spelling. Now, I'm going to try not to stay on my soapbox for too long here. Some schools give spelling lists, some schools don't. Some schools give spelling lists that are phonics based, and others will be like a whole bunch of jumbled words. So if you can, if your school gives your child spelling, try to use some of these tools. Try to help them organize it in the way that's going to be finding patterns, because our brain really loves patterns. So if you can help your child find patterns in the spelling, some of these tools will also be really helpful as well. I am an actual advocate of telling the teacher, hey, you know what? This isn't an appropriate spelling list for my child, and I would like him to be opted out. But I'm that parent. So
somebody asked if the bookmark is going to be part of the documents.
Yep.
Okay.
That got all sent out as well. So thank you. The additional part of the documents is by the end here of me talking about the spelling aspect, is you are going to be able to make spelling games for your child. And so that's also going to be part of the documents. So you're going to be given a game board and 3 different spelling lists just to be able to play games with your kids, because I'm all about games and having fun with them.
Nice.
So what is spelling? Spelling is a hugely executive function aspect. It's a complex task that requires auditory processing, phonemic awareness, recognition of sounds, memory of letters, meaning how is the letter formed, memory for spelling rules, spatial awareness, pencil grip, and working memory. This is why spelling, when you have a kid with dyslexia or dysgraphia or autism or ADHD, they're looking at you like, I don't want to spell. It's exhausting. And it is. It's absolutely exhausting. So what kind of tools can we give them to make it less exhausting? First, if your child does have auditory processing or working memory, and you will only know that if your child does have an official medical diagnosis, they're definitely going to need extra time, no matter what, ifs, ands, or buts. You also might want to consider professional intervention, specifically for the handwriting, the spelling, or composition piece. If they are struggling with phonemic awareness, then I want you to play phonemic awareness games. If you're not quite sure what that is, I'm going to give you an example, but you can also email me and I will give you tons of resources, free resources online, games on iPads, games that you can find on Amazon. I will give you whatever kind of a phonemic awareness games that you want. Let me give you an example of what I used to do with my kids in the car, just to practice phonemic awareness. You pick one word. Hey, we're going to go to Target today. So they're in the back, music is off, and you're driving. So you're going to say the word Target, and they're going to say Target. How many syllables in the word Target? Target. 2. Awesome. Say Target without tar. Get. Excellent. Say get. Get. How many sounds in the word get? G, t, get. There were 3 sounds. Awesome. Say get. Get. Say the g, take out the g and put in p. Pet. Say pet. Pet, take out the ah and put in I. Pit. Now we're going to change the last sound. Say pit, pit, take out the t and put in n. Pin. Give me a rhyming word with pin. Bin, fin, din. That's it. That's phonemic awareness. It's the manipulation of sounds. It's being able to hear syllables. It's changing the beginning, the middle, or the ending sound. It's segmenting and blending all the sounds together. Why is that important in spelling? Well, if you can't hear the word, if you can't hear the syllables in dichotomy, you can't spell each of those segments. If you don't know the difference between the a and eh sound, you're not going to be able to spell the word cat versus bed. Phonemic awareness is directly tied in with spelling, and it's super important. You can start this when they're 3, and I actually have my high schoolers doing phonemic awareness if they need to. Usually they stop around 7th, 8th grade or so, but I have my middle schoolers who can't hear their large part of their morphological words. So we're going back to syllabication. If your student has a hard time being able to recognize the sounds, then you can go ahead and play phonemic awareness games before you do your spelling and get a sound wall. Again, if you're not quite sure what a sound wall is, I will send you a link. You can make it on your own. Right there is my sound wall. So I have this in my homeschool classroom because I homeschool my youngest child. So he has that in his classroom, and then I obviously have that in my classroom here for my students. Their memories can be really, really taxed. And so if they're really trying to figure out all the different ways to spell the sound of A, give them a visual tool. Let them really work on their cognitive aspect as opposed to just getting stuck on the pattern. If they are struggling with what does the letter look like, that memory of letters, we don't need to have them struggle. They want to get their ideas out. But if they don't remember what the B and D look like, then it's over there. Then give them a tool. Give them a big sheet of paper with their alphabet on it. Give them an alphabet strip. We don't want to hold them back for one little piece that they're really struggling with. Next, if they're struggling with pencil grip, please help them with it. So a couple different ways that I want to tell you about pencil grip, and I'm going to make my screen big here. You can hold a pencil one of 3 ways. The first way is called the tripod. This is what is pretty typical. It's where your pointer finger is at the edge, your middle finger is using kind of that leverage, and then your thumb is where the movement comes in. The second part, or the second grip, is called a quadrupon grip. And so this is all 4. And so now your ring finger becomes that support where your thumb is still being able to manipulate and move. The last one is where you put the writing tool in between your ring finger, or I'm sorry, your middle finger and your pointer tool, and then you can flex this way. Handwriting Without Tears has some really great worksheets and games and songs to help kids with their pencil grip. So if you can really work on that pencil grip, the next thing that you can do is get a small writing tool. It's super hard, or it's super easy to be able to have a palmar grasp, which is appropriate for a 2-year-old, but not a 6-year-old, when they have a really big pencil. So instead, if you grab, I'm going to stop sharing here so you guys can see it, a teeny tiny pencil, they automatically start going to a correct grip. Take all your crayons, break them in half. Amazon sells golf pencils with erasers for like 20 bucks for a whole 100 of them. It's ridiculously cheap. So if they're struggling with pencil grip, or they're always complaining about their hand is tired, check their pencil grip. Next, have them use a spelling rule. So on the other side of my wall here, those are all the different spelling rules that we have. Today, you and I are going to talk about the 3. Where it means right down here where I say create an anchor chart. Once your child has understood a spelling rule, whether it's by the teacher or by you, then put it up on their wall. I send my students home every day every week once we learn a new spelling rule. I'm like, go take this and put it on your wall. So when you're writing your papers, when you are having to type something out, then you have your spelling rule right there. And last but not least, if you have a kiddo who is really struggling with spatial awareness, you will know your child. This is the child who writes teeny tiny in the corner, even though they have a big space. Or they're their opposite and they take up the entire space and they're writing all over the paper. Or instead of writing in a straight line, they're constantly writing diagonal. So these are the kids who look at a piece of paper or who look at a worksheet and go, where am I supposed to write? Or if the box is too small, they could have a meltdown. My son has a meltdown all the time. This is not big enough. I know they didn't give you enough space. So let's go ahead and make enough space for you. Or they just need a box. Kids with ASD love to be able to know what it is that they need to do and where they need to do it. So give them a box. You can do this by literally taking a marker, taking a highlighter, or anything that you need just to define the space. That's all they need you to do is define the space. Now, if you have a student or a kiddo who needs a little bit more intense work, you can change your type of paper. There are literally, I think I have 12 different types of paper: lined paper, dotted paper, paper that has raised bumps on it, paper that has different colored lines on it, and it goes on. It is more of an expense when you start looking at those different types of paper, but if your child needs it just to be able to get their ideas out, that's why I have all my selections here. So let's go ahead and talk about these different spelling rules. I'm going to give you information on 3 different spelling rules today. C versus K. When do you use what? The doubling rule and the sneaky E. Specifically, sneaky E actually has 5 jobs to do. Today, we're going to talk about 1, and that's how to make the word singular. All right, so let's dive in. C versus K. C makes the hard K sound when followed by the letters A, O, U, or a consonant. K makes the hard K sound when followed by an E or an I. So here's my rhyme, because I always have something fun for the kids to remember. K before I or E, C before the other 3, A, O, U, or consonant. I'm going back and forth because it's really not 3, it's actually 4. So it's really K before I or E, C before the other 4, but that doesn't rhyme. So if somebody has another way to think about that one, that's fine. What I usually say is K before I or E, C before the other 3, A, O, U, and don't forget your consonant. So that's kind of the way that we play it here in the classroom. K, and so this is information now for you guys. K is usually at the end of a word. C can be found anywhere. Latin words only take the letter C. There is no K in Latin. So let me show you the poster here. K before I or E. So I would print out this poster, I'd stick up on the wall, and then my kids would automatically know, oh yeah, so if I'm spelling the word can, what I might have them do is I would leave them a blank. So I'd be like, they'd be like, yeah, you have 2 choices to make, don't you? Skip it, we're gonna draw a line. Let's go ahead and finish that word, can. Let's use our anchor poster. What letter says K? C. What's the other letter that says K? K. Awesome. Which one are you going to use? Oh, it's C because C before A, O, or U. Awesome. So that's how I have them spelling the word can. Now, here is, because it's English language and we don't only take from Anglo-Saxon words, we have to take, so this only works for English words. There is my caveat, English words only. We have words like skunk. This is a Native American word. It's not English. It breaks that rule. The word vodka. That's a Russian word. It breaks this rule. So as you're practicing, as your kids are spelling, you can say, hey, by the way, this is not an English word. And then you can go ahead and go to Edam online and you can learn about the history of that. If you want me to, I can put that up later. Edam online is one of my favorite resources because kids are like, well, why is it spelled like that? I don't know. Let's look it up. Your next spelling rule, it's called the doubling rule. This one is super hard for kiddos to remember. Okay, so here's the doubling rule. I'm going to tell you what it is and we'll look at some examples. So the best way to remember this, simplest way to remember this is consonant, vowel, consonant, plus is that vowel suffix, which means then you have to double this final consonant. Some people call this the 1-1-1 rule, which means there's one syllable, one vowel, one ending consonant, plus your vowel suffix, which means again, you have to double the ending consonant. So let's look at some examples on what this means. If I have the word hop, I have a consonant, vowel, consonant right here. Here's my vowel suffix. I am adding the ing to it, which means I have to double the P to make it hopping. Same thing for the word running. But what if my base word has more than 3 syllables or more than 3 letters? You only look at the last 3. So I will have my students physically box the last 3 letters. And I'll be like, okay, what's the pattern you see? Consonant, vowel, consonant. Awesome. What about your suffix? Y is a suffix. It means precious. Y is considered a vowel in this time, which means it is a vowel suffix. So I have to double the G for the word froggy. Let's look at this a different way. I didn't get this until I saw this one. This is my favorite one. This actually comes from Ron Yoshimoto. And so we look at this idea here. Here's my base word, pat. 1 syllable, pat. Yep. 1 vowel. Yep. See it right there. 1 ending consonant. It's got a T. Does my suffix begin with a vowel? It does, because I want to do patted, which means I have to double it. So let's go ahead and take an example of a non-doubling word. The word is sail. 1 syllable? Yep. 1 vowel? Nope. I am not going to double the L. I just add on the word sailing, or I just add on the suffix sailing. We already talked about words like dropped. What about if I had the word drop plus your suffix less? If we take a look at this, 1 syllable, yep. 1 vowel, yep. 1 ending consonant, yep. Does the suffix start with the vowel? No, I don't do anything. I just added droplets. Clear as mud? All right. 3rd spelling rule, sneaky E. So again, this is on here so you can look at all the different jobs that Mr. Sneaky E does. And today we're going to specifically talk about the last one. So first, silent E, just like your magic E words. Consonant LE, those are the turtle words that we had talked about with the final stable syllable. You use E at the end of word if you want to make the C or the G say its soft sound. So page, not peg. Chance, not chant. I can't even say that one. Chant. That one's super hard. And the last one is E has to be put at the end of a word to tell us that the word is not plural. So let's take a step back real quick. And let's look at this plural S. If we have the word cat plus an S, we get the word cats. If I take off the S, I still have the word cat. I can picture a little kitty cat lying in the sun or vomiting things up, which my cat does. It's disgusting. So, but you still have that root word. It doesn't change the root word at all. If you don't add the E to a word like, or if you don't add the word to an E like course, you have core plus S. I don't know what a core is, so we have to be able to add the E here. Core, if it doesn't have an E on it, I don't know what that word is. You have to be able to add that E to there. Moose. I don't want my students thinking about a whole bunch of cows mooing. So we have moose. I don't want moose. I want a moose. I want them to picture the animal moose. So that's the purpose of adding an E to the end of these words. So now we're getting to the part where we get to make a game. So I'm going to switch over and show you guys the game that you're getting. Do you see where it says spelling game there, Tiffany? Oh, that's fine. I got it.
Sorry, I'm in mute.
No, I found it. All right. So here's your spelling game. So this is also in your handout. The way that you play this game is that you're going to have, you'll print out this whole thing. So it's just an 8x11 sheet. I have my example right here. You're going to get a die and you're going to get 2 pieces. And the idea here is that you have a whole list of words that you're going to be able to spell. So you'll cut out your list of words and you'll put them right there where it says cards. One person, one player, player one, will pick up the word, read it. The other player has to write the word because we're not only working on reading, we're working on spelling. We're working on decoding, encoding, really building those neural connections. The more multisensory stuff you get in there, the more this will be put into their brain and create those neural pathways. You can write on your tablet. You can write in shaving cream. You can write in rice. You can write in rainbow colors with your markers. I don't care how you write. You can write in the air as long as you can make sure that they're spelling it correctly. If you can read air writing, then they're good. So I don't care how they spell, as long as they are using their visual mind, their mind's eye, and being able to spell it. That's going to be great. Then you flip-flop. So then you would read the word and then they have to write it. So you roll the dice, one person reads, one person spells. You move your piece. Flip-flop, one person reads, the other person writes, move your piece, and keep going. The way that I play the game is the person who writes or who spells the word gets to move their piece, because that's the thing that's more difficult, at least for most students. So that's the first thing. When you make your game, let me give you some examples. So I'm going to stop sharing real quick. Color it. Have some fun with it. On your little circles, you can put miss a turn. You can put go forward 2 spaces. You can put jump back 2 spaces. You can put do 5 jumping jacks. If you got a kid with ADHD, put in some movement in there. You can say stand on your nose, or stand on your nose. Please don't stand on your nose. Stand on one foot and be able to spell a word. Go onto our trampoline and spell the word. So whatever you want to draw a picture just kind of make a fun, engaging board game for them to be able to engage with their with the board game. Do that. The exception is if you choose to make the game that has the doubling rule on it. My suggestion would be to do this. I have put only vowel suffixes. Now you can choose to do consonant suffixes, that's fine, but I have chosen to do vowel suffixes. So inside my circles, I wrote ing, er, ed, and I just kind of did that over and over again. Let me go ahead and share with you your list. So this is also in there. And yeah, see the whole list? Okay, so here's your list. C versus K. So if you're going to use the C versus K, you're going to be able to take all those words all the way down there. You'll notice about halfway down the page, they start getting a little bit harder. So those are going to be, I have high schoolers right now who don't remember C versus K, but I'm not going to give them words like cud and cake and kiss. I still want them to be challenged. So I've given you some higher level words for 2 and 3 syllable words to use the C versus K rule. Over here, the doubling rule, I've given you a whole bunch of words where they have to double the word. I've also included, and the last half, words that they cannot double. So we have to know when we use it and when we don't use it. So those will also be in there. And then I've given you sneaky E words where they have to make the word a singular word. So remember to put your E at the end there. Have fun making this game. It's included in the handout. And that was it for today. So there's that. I wanted to give a big shout out to Thrive Literacy Corner, IMSC for their freebies. If you guys want to, they have a whole ton of stuff up there for you guys to be able to use, and the corrective reading for some of the other pieces that I had there. Here is my contact information. If you guys ever have any questions, if you ever have any need for dyslexia support or intervention, if you have any homeschool questions, I'm also a homeschool mom. I've been doing it for a couple of years. I have a kiddo. I have 3 kiddos who are neurodiverse. So I'm living it, breathing it, working it, and I love it. Don't hesitate to email me. Thank you so much for your time.
That was wonderful. That was such a great reminder and lesson. Takes me back so far. And all those questions my son asked, well, why is it that way? I'm like, I don't know. Which is just that way, so lots of good tips and lots of good pointers. Please be sure to ask questions in the Q&A. One thing as you were going through this that, when you were talking about specifically with the pencil grip. Now, thinking back, so is that something that kids will figure out, or is that okay? So we really should look and monitor if there is, and then figure out what feels best for them.
Yep.
Is okay.
Yep. So at 2 years old, so that there is a different developmental progress. They do what's called the Palmer grip, and that's totally perfect. We really want to start when they're starting to ready to write their name. So in that kindergarten age, they really want to start moving towards this. Now, I've also worked with a lot of neurodivergent kiddos, and once they get one thing in their brain, then it sticks. So my son refused. He hates to color. He hates to write. So I actually started him on this grip when he was 3. I didn't make a big deal of it. It was always in playing with games, but we just do it for fun. And we just kind of always, I'm like, okay, go ahead and check. He actually chooses to do the quad grip. That is his grip. But again, your child, and if they're going to be one of those kiddos who, once they've learned something one way, it's going to be super hard to unlearn it, then you might want to consider doing that earlier than what might be recommended, because then you're going to have to break that habit.
No, I love that, and making it fun. So if they are older, I mean, how long? Because I know it takes a long time and a lot of repetition to make a habit or to break a habit.
Yep.
Those at the same time.
I won't change a kid's grip in one of two things. So really after the age of 7, I won't do it. Unless it actually physically causes them pain.
Okay.
And then the second thing is, if their handwriting is really legible and they have a funky grip, then they have a funky grip. If it's not causing them pain, they can continue to write for a long time. Don't fix it if it's not broke.
Okay. That helps a lot tremendously. Oh, I just had another question when you were talking about that, because going through, what is your perspective? I don't see any questions, so I'm going to ask if someone else jumps in. And thank you. I see all the wonderful positive feedback and comments about how impactful and valuable this information was. So appreciate it. So when they're speech to text, what's your thought on that as far as, helping kids with their education, or is that hindering that growth? When does it become both of those, of incorporating that so the child learns? I'll just stop there.
Yeah, no, that's great. So when we look at reading and we look at writing, it's neither either or, it's both. So I don't tell my parents, oh, they're like, well, how do you feel about audiobooks? I say, I love them. I also love decodable books. So I want the kid reading and decoding, but I also want them listening for vocabulary and fluency. So I want a kiddo writing, but maybe they're only writing out their spelling words. So if they have to write an entire sentence and that's taxing for them, go to speech to text. If they have to write out a whole paragraph and that's really exhausting, speech to text is great. If they can go to the point where, again, we're really looking at their emotional well-being, go to the point where it stops before frustrational level. If they have to write one word, if they have to write one sentence, or if they can write 11 sentences, wherever they are in that spectrum. I love them both. I also want to plug in for cursive, because print is great, text to speech is great. Cursive is like the end all be all. It's fantastic because it uses a different part of your brain. You don't get reversals and it's a lot more fluid. And kiddos who have to slow down because of the ADHD or slow down because of they want to run really fast and get it done and over with, or kiddos who have to slow down and process what spelling tool they're going to use, cursive is beautiful.
So I'm glad you said that, because I wonder about that, because I have a hard time, because my son, who hasn't, learned to read cursive, obviously, but their school is learning cursive, which I was excited about, but I cannot, it's so hard for me to actually print. It takes so much.
It does
in print, because it's so easy to write cursive. So I'm glad you said that, because I can see where it's just easy and it flows. And I think especially well, but for my son and boys, I think just getting through that. So I don't see any questions. Anyone want to ask in the Q&A or anything, the chat?
And if they have questions that come up, just they can email me.
Okay, so here is one that's coming in. So my daughter has a low average IQ, ASD, ADHD. She has reading and math difficulties. Reading level is now 2nd grade level, and she's entering 7th grade. School will not recognize that she fits the criteria for dyslexia. She's having a private reading tutor using Barton. She says that it's easier. How do I convince the school that dyslexia interventions need to be used for her reading? Her reading level has slipped more than in the past few years. Thank you very much. Love the visuals. Great presentation. Great question.
Yeah, that is a really good question. That is something that's actually everybody is fighting for right now. So every family with a kid with dyslexia, whether it's mild, moderate, or severe, schools don't even in the drop-down menu, when they fill in the IEP, they don't even have the option of giving a dyslexia diagnosis. It's reading disability or learning disability with reading or whatever it is. They don't even have that plug in for dyslexia. What do? You fight for it. You get an advocate. You can don't get hung up on having them do the terminology, like saying, yes, my child has dyslexia. Go at it like, this is what my child needs. She needs explicit instruction. So if she's doing Barton, she's doing Orton-Gillingham. So because Barton is an Orton-Gillingham method. So put in her IEP, she needs explicit, progressive intervention for her reading. And that's the way I would approach it, is through the IEP, and get very, very specific with your language about what it is that she needs. And if they can't provide that, then you have to decide on how much you want to fight.
Yeah, that's a tough.
And I'm going to make a plug for Tiffany. She has some really great advocates in her in her professional list there. So that's definitely an avenue that you might want to swing back around and talk to Tiffany about.
Yes. So if you want to reach out, Jill, and put that, I know, I believe you're outside of Denver. But yes, still reach out, and I'd be glad to help you on that journey and what that looks like.
So actually, I just read what you saw. I actually go to every single one of my students' IEP meetings. So I am the tutor, I am the reading therapist. I will, because I also have a special ed background, I write goals out specifically for reading. And the parents are like, oh yes, I want it. And since the parent is part of the IEP team, the special ed teacher has to put it in. So I write out the goals. I write out accommodations. I also write out reports, because I do reports twice a year. So this is everything that I do for my clients. And you can ask your tutor to do the same thing. But I think it's super helpful for schools to be able to collaborate with the outside professionals.
Mm-hmm. I've even heard parents say that schools have asked the professionals to leave, and they're like, no, we will stay here through this conversation. So I know. So don't allow that to happen. They have every right to be there. They know what your child needs. So definitely do what you can to get that, but they should definitely be there to help and explain and partner. So good luck with that. And I know we're a little bit over. So I do see, let me see, is there another quick question? How would you recommend supporting a middle school student who is reading independently, silently, or if she is at the point, is it not as needed? It is not as needed.
So what's not needed?
How would you recommend supporting a middle school student who is reading independently, silently, or if she is at the point it is not as needed?
So I read it. I got it. So it depends on your middle schooler. So what is it that they're struggling with? Are they struggling with comprehension? Are they struggling with fluency? Are they struggling with grammar and spelling? So you have to figure out where it is that they're struggling and then address it that way. If they're struggling with decoding, so all of my middle school students go through my morphology. So we start teaching Greek and Latin, because once you start being able to understand Greek and Latin, you can understand how all of those words have meaning, build up that vocabulary, build up that visual recognition so they can start reading quickly. So that's how I work with my middle school students. And because I still, again, want those neural pathways to connect, I also have them do their spelling. So if we're reading morphological words, we're spelling morphological words. So unless, and then if it's a fluency issue, that's an entire new webinar. If it's a comprehension issue, one of my favorite things to do to double check on comprehension is annotate the text. They have to be able to show that they've been able to annotate the text, and annotations can. I have a little sticky note. And so it's just called little sticky moments. And so it's how they're relating to the text. I'd be happy to send this to you. This is kind of my own little creation, but for middle schoolers, you really want to make sure that they are comprehending what they're reading, nonfiction as well as fiction. Oh, you're muted, Tiff.
Sorry, I'm mute. Thank you so much. A lot of great information. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Like I said, I'll get the recording out. My anticipation is getting it out tomorrow. It might be Friday at the latest, but you will get it by the end of this week. And Corrine, thank you so much. This was
It's been my pleasure.
Truly amazing. And so many people struggle in this area. So thank you for taking the time to present for us tonight. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everyone have a good night. Thank you all for joining.
Bye-bye.